All right, guys, so before we start solving these problems, I know you're so excited, we want to real quick review the notes from the other day. Remember, you can solve inequalities exactly like you solve equations. Same steps, we're doing GEMDAS backwards. So first, you've got your river of love. Second, you add or subtract. Third, you multiply or divide. Remember, when you're doing these two steps, you're doing inverse operations. You're going to do the opposite operations. The only thing different is that now we must remember the golden rule. That needs to be boxed in yellow because it's golden. The golden rule of inequalities is whenever you multiply or divide by a negative number, you must flip the inequality symbol. Whenever you multiply or divide by a negative number, you must flip the inequality. It doesn't matter if we add or subtract a negative. It only matters if we multiply or divide by a negative. So let's go through and do some examples like we were doing yesterday, but now we're going to add in the graphing part of it. So what's step one again? The river of love. The river of love. Josh, do you remember the river of love?
Yes.
If you couldn't hear him, he says yes, he remembers hearing about the river of love when I filmed the last notes. So after you've got your river of love going on, we need to add or subtract, do the inverse operations. So in this problem, are we adding or are we subtracting? We are adding that 7. So what's the inverse? What's the opposite of adding 7? Subtract 7 from both sides. So we have a positive 7 minus 7. Those are going to cancel each other out. So all we have left here is this 3x. Bring that down. So we have 3x is less than or equal to negative 5 minus 7. Pause the video and use Desmos if you need to, or draw out your pluses and your minuses and cancel them if you can. What's negative 5 minus 7? Negative 12. Negative 12. Are we done? No, we still got to get rid of that 3. So again, we're going to use inverse operations. We're going to either multiply or divide. Remember, if they're side by side, what operation is that really? That's really multiplication. Math people are just being lazy, working smarter, not harder. They're not going to write that sign if they don't have to. So really, we are multiplying this 3 times x. So what's the inverse of multiplication? Division. So we need to divide both sides by 3. Multiplying by 3 and dividing by 3 cancels out. So all we have left on the left side is x. Negative 12 divided by 3. If you need that reminder, draw out the pyramid or draw out the hashtag that you guys call it. Do the positives in a diagonal, fill everything else in with negatives. 5 and negative divided by positive. My answer should be negative. What's 12 divided by 3? 4. Question for you. Should I flip that sign? On this side, it's a negative 12. Should I flip that sign? No, you should not flip that sign. Only if the number with the x is negative. Only if my coefficient, my number with my x, if that is negative, then we flip the sign. But here our 3 is positive, so we do not flip it. It's going to stay the same. So we get x is less than or equal to negative 4. But like I said, we're not quite done yet. Now we're going to graph it on the number line. So if I have x is less than or equal to negative 4, is that going to be an open or closed circle? Is that going to be an open or closed circle? Why is it closed? That's right. Whenever it has the line underneath, you have to color it in. If I got to be extra with my sign, I got to be extra with my dot. We're going to color it all the way in. And then x is less than or equal to negative 4. So if I want numbers less than, am I going to shade to the left or am I going to shade to the right? Which way is less? Which way is less? Less is to the left. Less is to the left. So any of my numbers smaller than negative 4 work for this inequality. I could have negative 7, because negative 7 is less than negative 4. I could have negative 5 1/3. That's less than negative 4. I can have negative 4, because negative 4 is equal to negative 4. It includes that point. So any of those numbers equal to or smaller than negative 4 work for this problem. They work for an answer. Slide on over to number 2. Josh, what's step 1? Say it louder so I can hear you. He's whispering. He said the river of love, though. He knows what he's doing. Jacko's asleep, otherwise I'm sure he'd say hi too. So we've got our river of love going on. Again, if you need to look back at the steps, hopefully you have them down by now between equations and inequalities. But again, after a river of love, we add or subtract. We do the inverse operation. So if we come down here, are we adding or subtracting in this problem? We're subtracting 4. So I need to do the inverse. I need to do the opposite of subtracting 4. What is the opposite of subtracting 4? Adding 4. So we need to add 4 to both sides. What's 5 plus 4? 9. Nice job. You must have a good math teacher. Bring down our inequality sign. And then we still have that negative 9x. So we got to bring that down. So we have 9 is less than negative 9x. Next step. We need to multiply or divide. Multiply or divide, we have to do the inverse operation. So what is it again if they're side by side like this? Just like over here, if they're side by side, that means that we have to multiply those two numbers together. That means we're multiplying them together in the problem, but for me to solve, I have to do the opposite. So what is the opposite of multiplication? Division. So we have to divide both sides by negative 9. If I take 9 divided by 9, is my answer going to be positive or negative? Use the pyramid or use the tic-tac-toe to help you. Is my answer going to be positive or negative? We should have a negative answer. Positive and a negative, my answer is going to be negative. Positive and a negative, my answer is going to be negative. And then what's 9 divided by 9? 1. And on this side, multiplying by 9, negative 9, and dividing by 9, negative 9, that cancels out. So all we have over here is x. Now we got to think. We divided both sides by -9. Do we flip our sign? We divided both sides by -9. Do we flip our sign? Yes, we do. We flip our sign. So we see -1 is greater than x. -1 is greater than x. So when we're graphing on our number line, are we going to have an open or a closed circle? Open. Remember, it's only closed if there's the line underneath. But on this problem, there is no line there, so it's going to be an open circle. And then are we going to shade to the left or are we going to shade to the right? -1 is greater than x. So if -1 is greater than x, do we shade to the left or to the right? We should shade to the left because I need x to be smaller than -1. So I want all those numbers, -2, -3, -1.5, everything smaller than -1. If you are good with these problems, I'm going to have you go ahead and do those next 4 on your own. I'm going to have you do the next 4 on your own. Go ahead, pause the video. Or wait, no, I'm going to make a different video for this. So you have to do the problems and then come back to me. So like I said, solve these problems. If you have questions, if you need some help, ask me or Mr. Snook. If not, good luck to you, and I'll see you on the next video. Well, I won't see you. You'll see my hands and you'll hear me, but you know what I mean.